Hello and welcome to the Life at Leyton Podcast with me, Sarah Glanville, as your host. Here at Leyton UK, we know our people are more than just their job. The careers of our people are part of their unique lives, and who they are as a whole person is what fundamentally contributes to their success and the success of our business. In the podcast, we'll spend time with one of our exceptional people from across the business. And in each episode, we'll look to explore the people behind the job titles, the unique and brilliant stories that make them who they are. In episode 5, I had the delight of chatting with Dr Jessica McGlynn, one of our exceptional senior technical consultants here at Leyton UK. Jess is a doctor of chemistry and she joined our science team in October 2020. In today's episode, we discuss that very real and daunting question of what is next after graduating, but not quite knowing what the future might look like. Jess talks openly about the realities of tackling that question and wants to highlight the alternative career paths here at Leyton for those who are looking for a scientific or technical job outside of a lab or industry. I really think you will enjoy this episode as much as I did. This is a very real and honest conversation about what stepping outside of education and into the world of work can look like. So thank you for tuning in. Grab yourself a coffee and get ready to be inspired by the people that are Leyton UK. Hello Jess, welcome to episode 5 of the Life at Leyton podcast. Thank you for being my lovely guest for today's episode. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. There is so much for us to chat about and I know that you love to talk as much as me. So
I don't know about that.
Could you start us off today by introducing yourself to our listeners and talking us through your career journey so far?
So basically I started here 2.5 years ago, came straight from university after a 6 month, what I call my retirement phase, because I was unemployed for 6 months during COVID. But I started in October 2020 as a technical consultant.
Yep.
So basically my background's in chemistry, so I started in the science team. And basically haven't looked back since. Been working with a wide range of clients, ranging from like farming to big chemical companies. So
Yep.
It's every day's different, I suppose. Every day's interesting. So it's it's really good so far.
Brilliant, fantastic. So it's been a quick 2.5 years.
Oh my god, it's flown in. I'm still in 2019.
Yeah,
I'm still 26 as well. I feel like, I've decided I've not aged.
That's the important part. Now, the Life at Leyton podcast is only a little bit about your career here. We're here to find out more about you as a whole person, and I know that you're keen to share more about the pathway that brought you to Leyton. So, what did life look like before you joined Leyton in October 2020?
Cool, so I did my PhD at the University of Glasgow in chemistry, so I finished that in April 2020. Now,
yeah.
I absolutely loved my PhD. I had the best time. I feel like it was like 3.5 years of having a holiday.
Yeah.
Not many people would actually say that.
I know, I'm really surprised.
Like, don't get me wrong, you go crazy at the end of it. Like, I genuinely think, definitely wires were like mixed up at one point. But the sanity comes back eventually, slightly, partially. Yeah. But no, I loved my PhD. It was so good, and that I got to travel different places. I went to like America or like Europe for conferences. I got to like talk about my work and things like that. The work itself, I mean, it was fine. I didn't necessarily enjoy lab work. I personally think a trained monkey could probably do lab experiments, but I probably shouldn't say that in a recording. But I loved the thinking behind planning your experiments, then collecting the results, and then looking at everything and analysing it, then trying to figure out what to do next, and then taking what you've learned and trying to present it in an understandable way to, you might be going to a conference where you're speaking to like experts who know everything you're talking about, or you might be doing like an undergrad conference where nobody's got any idea of what you're doing, kind of thing. So kind of tailoring what you've worked on and how to present it to various different audiences, kind of thing. So that was the kind of aspect I enjoyed about it, and also the kind of problem solving aspect, I guess, of like a subject that you don't really know much about, and then as you go through 3.5 years of studying, all of a sudden, okay, you know everything you know about this particular, in my case, it was one particular material, and I was like, that nobody really actually cares about in the real world. That's the existential crisis that came into play in 2020. But no, it was a really, really fun experience, which again, not many people would say, but I took it as a fun trip.
Yeah, no, and I think you've got to, when you're investing 3 and a bit years of your life into understanding something, one particular thing. So do you want to talk a little bit more about what your PhD was actually focused on?
So I was really interested in the kind of renewable energy routes, energy production stuff. So all the way through actually, and during my masters as well, I worked on hydrogen production, so either looking at the materials or the process to get there. So my PhD itself was like trying to understand the like surface properties of different materials that would allow hydrogen to be produced from the electrochemical splitting of water in like the most energy efficient way as possible, if that's a proper way of explaining it. So it was really just taking the materials, zapping some electricity at it, and watching bubbles form.
Wow.
That was like in the simplest way possible. That is essentially what I did. I even got to collect the bubbles.
I appreciate you simplifying it for me, because that was really technical for my little brain, so thank you.
Only because I can't actually remember how I did.
Don't tell everyone that.
No.
So you joined Leyton after your PhD.
Yeah.
I guess going through education, through your academic journey all the way to PhD, how long did that take you? How long were you in further education?
So I was in uni for 8.5 years total, I believe. So I mean, I only really did a PhD, I'm not going to lie, because I got to the end of my masters and had a little bit of a quarter life crisis and thought, what the hell am I going to do with my life? And then I thought, well, if I'm going to stay in science, I may as well get to the highest point of education. Then surely in 3.5 years' time I'll know what I want to do in my life after that, right? I didn't. So spoiler alert. So I thought, no, I may as well stay on, do a PhD. I mean, it's essentially like you're getting paid to do it. It's like, well, it's the equivalent of like a minimum wage job essentially. But it was like, I may as well do it now when I was genuinely interested in it. So I thought it would open up, better career prospects for me as well.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think it's really interesting. Not that I know anything about doing a PhD, it'd be no surprise to anyone
biggest
listening.
Form of fraud. You don't know. I'm a real life example of you do not need to be clever to do a PhD. You just need to be a hard worker.
Shush, Jess, you're very smart. No, I think that whenever you speak to people who've got to that point, who've done their PhD and they've completed that, I feel like they either have this complete picture of what it is that their life is going to look like, and they need the PhD to be able to go forward and complete whatever it is their career aspirations are, or they're like you and they're just like, I love education, I like learning, I don't know where my life is going, so I'm just going to keep going and continue on the academic journey. Yeah,
definitely. I think when I first started doing my PhD, my kind of, you're pure, like when you start in research, you're young in it, you're not got that much experience in doing it, so you think it's fantastic. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start a PhD and then I'm going to do like what they call like a postdoc, which is like then further research as an actual worker. I was like, I'll travel, I'll go to America. That was like my big kind of plan. And then as the kind of years went on, I was kind of thinking, this is good, it's still fun, I'm enjoying it, but really a lot of it's kind of like research for the sake of research. Like, as I say, the stuff I was working on, like nobody will actually be looking at that now. Do you know what I mean? It's added into a database for somebody maybe to come along and look at later on, but it doesn't actually have any sort of real world impact on anything. So kind of going through that, I was kind of like, I don't really know if this is for me. It's great fun. I kind of slowly started to change my mind. And then of course we had no idea, like obviously COVID and that was going to hit, so I was getting close to the end and I still had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. Like, genuinely none, and like the fear was starting to like properly kick in. Because and I think the thing in proper science jobs is, I remember we spoke about this before, like there's not much information out there surrounding non-lab based science jobs. So I thought when I did a PhD, I thought, right, okay, I'm stuck in it now. Like what actually else am I qualified to do? Other than,
I'm very qualified, but...
I thought going into a lab based job again, I was like, I just did not want to do that. Like, honest to God, I would literally just sit and Google non-lab based science jobs. Like, I was like, at this point I would do anything that wasn't...
I mean, what was it about going through your PhD? When did you realise that kind of a role in a laboratory or going into this kind of research wasn't really in your future? What was it that made you feel like that wasn't the right next step?
I don't know if there was any one particularly defining moment. I think it was just going through it, and then I think I kind of slowly came to realise it was more the actual the problem solving part of doing something that I enjoyed rather than the topic of research itself. So it was like, you're given like a complex problem, you have to look into it, you have to do your kind of studying and literature review, then you have to go design your experiments in the lab, do your experiments, get the results and analyse it. That really can be applied to various different things. It didn't need to be hydrogen production for me or energy routes, whatever it was. Do you know what I mean? It's like that kind of core problem solving aspect where you're constantly learning about something, constantly working towards something. That was the part I found enjoyable rather than the actual work itself.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, okay, what can I do that kind of lets me constantly learn? Because then that was the fear I had. It was like, oh my god, am I just going to go into a job where I'm literally sitting working 9 to 5, cue Dolly Parton. So I always blaze my head as soon as I say that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like counting down the minutes to the end of the day, doing the exact same thing day in, day out until I die. I'm like, that's my idea of absolute hell.
Yeah, that's the fear, isn't it?
Yeah, and then it's like, and then you're literally just living for the weekend. And I'm like, no, I want to do something where I'm constantly challenged or something I enjoy. Life is too short.
Oh, 100% agree.
So
yeah.
I just want to, feel kind of challenged, constantly learn, and I thought surely there's a job out there that lets me do that. That's not working in a lab. Once you've done it once, you're essentially repeating the same thing over and over again, or slightly kind of tweaking it to do something differently. So
that isn't really letting you tackle that question, is it? Of or that problem solving all the time.
Yeah.
Once you look at like the actual micro detail of what it would you'd be doing on a day-to-day basis.
And then sometimes I'm like, I don't really care. Like I was like, if this experiment works or not, it's like, is it really going to impact anything? Like no, it's just kind of not. It'll maybe let me go to a fancy conference abroad or something, but who cares?
I get that. So I mean, that's a huge question when you've invested kind of 8 years in your life, you're doing this thing, you start to think, right, I kind of feel like I'm almost stuck in this career trajectory of where I'm going, but that question's coming up where you're like, I know this isn't what I want to do. So how did you tackle that question of what's next?
I had a lot of margaritas.
I think that's always the solution to life's problems.
A lot of margaritas. So this was the thing that added to more stress, because obviously I'm writing my thesis and looking for a job at the same time, right? And my supervisors, I mean, I love the man, right, but he knew me inside out, right, so he gave me a 5-week deadline to write my thesis. Most folk do it in like 3 months, right?
Wow.
But he knew that if he didn't give me a
hard deadline,
I would sit and reread it and procrastinate, blah blah blah. So I'm writing that quickly within 5 weeks. I'm also job hunting with no idea what I'm actually going to do. And like the fear is like, obviously my original plan was, I'm going to go to America, whatever, but then I was like, Christ, my life's too good where I am. Like, do I really want to pack up just for a job that I don't really care about? Yeah. It's like, do you know what I mean? So I was kind of like, what the hell am I going to do? Where am I going to end up doing it? I'm like, I don't want to move somewhere boring with none of my pals, and then I'm like starting life all over again kind of thing. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, is my PhD even, like, was it worth doing it kind of thing? Am I going to get a job where I could have just done it straight from an undergrad degree? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it was kind of like, I wanted to make sure I got something where I hadn't wasted that 3.5 years. Absolutely. So there's a lot of stress, a lot of fear. Yeah. I wasn't like this. Well, some people would say I was, but it was a manic face. I should get an Oscar, I'm not gonna lie. But this probably sounds terrible as well, but COVID came at a really good time for me, because I when I was finishing my thesis, I had the fear, because I love being busy, I love to work. Yeah. The thought of not having a job, or not going into the uni, not continuing like doing my PhD while looking for a job, I thought, I don't know how I'm going to cope with that. Yep. Like genuinely, I thought I need to find something soon, because I will spiral. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think a lot of us need to be busy, you need to feel like you're productive, it's part of your DNA almost. Exactly, right. So what we went into lockdown at the end of March, so I'd submitted my thesis end of February, but I had my final exam over it was 3rd April, and had to do over Zoom. Yeah. It was like, you could usually do them in a room, kind of like this, you're sitting talking in person, you're drawing out your read diagrams, whatever, but because obviously COVID, had to do it over Zoom. Now, bear in mind, at this time, all my pals and family out with university, they're all key workers. So they're all like working one of them was working in Tesco's, like people working in NHS, working in schools and stuff like that, and I'm sitting there reading about a little molybdenum telluride, a little material that, you know, nobody actually cares about, and I'm thinking, I'm probably the most educated person outside my uni friend group ever that I know, and I'm probably the most useless right now in this situation. So that kind of spiraled me a little bit. Okay, so once I'd done that, once I had my final exam, that was where I was like, okay, COVID hit. We had all this time, like nobody was even hiring at this point, right? Yeah. Really. And I was, all of a sudden, me and Lorraine Kelly were very, very good friends, because I would just sit and watch daytime TV. So I would just sit on Google constantly, Googling like non-lab based jobs. I would go into, Indeed, like Glassdoor, like all the different sites, just trying to get a kind of insight of what was actually out there. Because when I was at uni, I remember we had one careers day like during my PhD and it was like patent attorney firms. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do that because that sounded great. It was like, take something complex and describe it, break it down, describe it in a simple way to, people that don't know anything about it essentially. And I thought, I could do that. That sounds kind of like that kind of problem solving role kind of thing. So I started looking into that. Kind of hit a little bit of a brick wall, and I remember thinking, Christ, I wish somebody would come into like my uni and actually explain what they did with these different backgrounds, because generally I'd literally no idea what was out there, and then tried to come up with some sort of like plan of action of where to apply to. Emailed a lot of people randomly with my CV and that, been like, oh no, you're not hiring right now, but blah blah blah, put this on the database, whatever. And eventually 6 months later, here we are, good old Simon from Leyton dropped me an email and tried to arrange a call kind of thing, and then the rest is history after that.
So Leyton, you found Leyton in your search for non-lab based science jobs.
Exactly, yes. It came up, I think it was like on Indeed or something like that, and I'm not going to lie to you, it came up the website and I was like, this isn't a real company. Like, this is one of these jobs where you upload your CV and then it keeps your email address to like spam you with stuff. Why did you think that? Purely because I'd never heard of anything. Like, it was like, R&D technical consultant. I was like, what the hell is that? Like, I think that was the kind of skeptic in me. I was like, surely I would have known there was these jobs out there. Yeah. Having undergone like 8.5 years of science research. I mean, you'd think there'd be more
spoken about it.
Exactly. So I was kind of like, that can't be real. But it was a drag and drop your CV and cover letter, so I was like, it's an easy.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, exactly. Tick. I remember keeping a list of all the jobs I applied to. God, it was a tragic time.
So when you heard from Leyton and they wanted to meet you for an interview, I guess, what did you do at that point? Did you go in and research a little bit more about Leyton, or did you jump on the call and find out more about them at that point?
So the first time, so Simon got back to me, it was a few months I think after I actually dragged and dropped my CV, so I'd completely forgotten about it, not gonna lie to you, and he said, oh, you free like tomorrow, the next day, whatever, for a call. I looked at the website and everything, but that was really the kind of extent of my research into it. Simon called me, and then I was expecting him to kind of like interview me and like, ask me questions, but it turned into more of, he was explaining the job to me and like going through all different aspects of what what to do here, and I was like, this actually sounds very interesting, and it also sounds like a real job in a real company. From there, I think then he set up my next interview like on the call, but then he sent me over like the R&D sample guide, whatever, to read through in terms of what the scheme actually is and all that, and he's like, read through all this, it'll give you more information on what the job is. And from that point I was able to look into more and get a kind of better understanding of what it is, and I was like, oh my god, this actually sounds really, really interesting. And I'm like, how did I not know about this before? And it, honestly, it kind of ticked that kind of whole, the problem solving aspect of a job. You're constantly learning, and I'm not in the lab. I was like, this doesn't sound quite real, but here we
sounds
are.
Like it's perfect for me. No, and I think that it's when you had that kind of total feeling of, oh my goodness, like what is next? I don't know what I'm going to move to. I don't know if my dream job exists, or as close to a dream job as you can get exists, and then you start finding out more about the role at Leyton, and you're like, no, this actually ticks so many of the boxes that I would hope for my next job to be ticking. So that's awesome. I mean, I guess, do you want to talk a little bit about what the technical consultant does at Leyton and how that does tick boxes?
Yeah, sure. Like, I guess so. The main part for me is, so you first have that initial conversation with the client, regardless of what they're actually doing, right, is kind of, you can break down what they're doing into like whatever the criteria actually are, right? So I guess it's kind of learning more about what they're actually doing and trying to understand it yourself, right? Because science is such a broad subject. Like, I don't know half the stuff we actually talk about. I probably shouldn't say that on recording.
We'll stop that bit out.
No, but I mean, it's so broad, like nobody can be an expert in absolutely everything in science. But when you try and break it down into advancement, uncertainty, baseline, whatever, it's like that kind of underlying aspect of science kind of shows itself in a lot of different sectors in a kind of similar way. So I guess for me, for the technical consultant, you kind of listen to what the client's been working on, which is sometimes like insane, because you get people working on different things that you never ever would have thought would actually be studied. I'm trying to think of an example, but I can't because my mind's going. But So listen to them tell you, learn about it yourself when you go like research or Google or read articles, whatever, on it. And then again, it's taking that complex stuff, breaking it down into a simple way and writing a report up. So for me, it's like there's not actually that much different to a PhD, where you're given a topic, you research it, you go and do the work. you don't have to do any lab work, it's all there for you. You talk to the client instead of that, and then you write it up in a way that's actually understandable to somebody else that doesn't have any experience in it.
Yeah.
So for me, in a kind of nutshell, that's essentially the kind of role of a consultant. I've probably missed out a really, really core aspect of the job. I call my clients all the time just for anybody's lesson there.
And I mean, I think I can like really clearly see you've got from this job what you were wanting to achieve in your career. It does seem like a really good fit. I mean, I guess that question of what's next is something that will come up for pretty much anyone going through education, anyone who's coming to the end of even their undergraduate degree or their, you know, further than that. What advice would you have for them when they're coming up against that question of what is next?
Oh God, I feel like the stress and the fear is just a rite of passage sometimes. I'm like, if I've went through it, you need to go through it too. I mean, it'll all work out in the end, I suppose, right? But I would say, from like even during your studies, keep your mind open to other types of jobs that are out there. Try and go to maybe more career fairs than what I did. I remember going to a few and it was all investment banks for some reason. Yes. I remember thinking that was my last case scenario. I would sell my soul to some sort of investment bank firm. Yeah, that was weird. But maybe try and talk to other people throughout. Look, I guess it's kind of hard because if you go to conferences, it's usually academic conferences. But I guess try and get a better understanding of the different positions that are out there that aren't necessarily in labs, or if it is in labs, you know, there's lots of routes you can take. But
talk to people basically.
Talk to people, you know me, Sarah. You know, I like a conversation. I like to sky at all points.
Any opportunity, Jess.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it's networking. It's not chatting.
Networking. There you go. There's a buzzword.
That's what they always said to me at the uni, because every time I bumped into somebody in the hallway, I was standing chatting to people, and I remember they'd always come up to me like, Jessica, how do you get your work done? Everything's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what they say, isn't it? Sometimes you can delegate. You can only delegate if you know people, right? You can only share that workload out if you've got friends.
Yeah. See, if there was a problem, I knew exactly who to go to. Who was the person that needed to help me. So there you go.
That's it. That is it. Yeah. I think you are right. I think everyone's just going to have to feel that at some point, and even
it's
people,
horrible.
Yeah,
it's completely horrible. Yeah. I don't envy. I wouldn't go back.
No, you're glad you found it now, but yeah, going out and speak to people and find out what's out there, and I think that's great advice. Thank you, Jess. Thank you so much. That's the questions I had for you. Is there anything else?
God, that's nice and speedy. Right.
Is there anything else you wanted to cover off before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. I think we're all good.
Excellent. Well,
I wish the dog was still here. So.
I know, I've got my dog in the office today, but she got banned. She got banned because she was making noise in the podcast. So, amazing. Thank you everyone for listening along at home, and thank you, Jess. I appreciate your time. I hope everyone at home enjoyed that chat as much as I did. So we'll be back in 2 weeks' time for our 6th episode, and the next one is with our very own marathon man, Zach Crossland, our head of energy, who's just completed back-to-back marathons raising money for charity. Until then, if you're one of the members in our talent community and you're interested in finding out more about what the future might look like at Leyton, please reach out to one of us here in the talent acquisition team. I'll put my details in the description below, or check out our careers page for the roles that we have live currently. We'll be back again in a few weeks. Thanks again, Jess, for sharing your story. Thank you all for listening in, and this has been episode 5 of the Life at Leyton podcast. Chat soon.